Thank you for joining. Uh, we will continue with our discussion on the prayers uh, concluding part of the prayers by Kunti Devi. So we are resuming from chapter 1, Canto 1, chapter 8, verse 44. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Cheva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine. So in the previous, we missed, rather I missed 2 classes last week because I was traveling. Before that, we had studied the prayers by Kunti Devi. And this is the first verse following the prayers by her, 1844. Sutta vacha prathayetam kalapadaha parinuta khelodayaha mandam jahasa vaikuntho mayaniva mayaya. Sutta Goswami said, the Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was as enchanting as his mystic powers. So what we'll do is, as we had discussed earlier, that only touch on the major points, and with the understanding that and the expectation that you have studied the purport, that way we'll be able to move quickly. So the main points in this verse is one, that Krishna, he is one who accepts all kinds of prayers of his devotees, even those that are improperly composed. So Sutta uses the word kalapadaha to describe the verses or the chantings of the prayers by Kunti Devi, and it can be translated into chosen words, which means that selected words. It can also be translated into broken words. And Srila Prabhupada says that Kunti Devi was a simple woman, so it was not expected for her to have poetic command on the language, or to use have deep Vedic references. But even her prayer that was composed in improperly chosen words, Krishna accepts, and he smiles. So Krishna, he accepts the essence of the delivery. It is of course good if you are able to do so in the proper way, chant the verses in the correct meter, use the correct Sanskrit words when composing prayers, etc. But not essential. Essential is the mood in which the prayers are spoken, and Kunti speaks them with heartfelt devotion. So Krishna accepts it. And what does he do when he accepts it? Mandam Jahasa. So Jahasa means smiles. Prem Kishore Prabhu, I think you need to change the view on the screen. Yeah, thank you. So so Mandam Jahasa means that he Mandam is slightly, that he smiles slightly. And why does he smile? So the acharyas give different reasons for this slight smile of Krishna. It acknowledges the expression of gratitude from Kunti Devi. So Kunti Devi in her prayer was talking about her deep gratitude to Krishna, and Krishna smiles to acknowledge that gratitude. The smile is out of affection for the devotee. The smile is a manifestation of the mercy of Krishna, and it is Maya. Maya means that it bewilders. So the smile bewilders the devotee so when one is experiencing a lot of love, one gets bewildered. So it bewilders both the devotee and non-devotee in different ways. So for the devotee, there is nothing more enchanting than the smile of Krishna. And for the non-devotee, there is nothing more bewildering than the smile of Krishna. So it is said that that Maya Devi, she resides also in the smile, and the same Maya Devi acts as Yogamaya and Mahamaya. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives an interesting interpretation that Krishna is smiling because he himself is bewildered. Bewildered by what? By the outpouring of pure love and devotion from Kunti Devi. So he is Krishna, who is one who can speak eloquently, becomes tongue-tied when he is glorified by his devotees, and all that he can do at that time is smile slightly. So the in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Srimati Kunti Devi has prayed to the Lord just to enunciate a fragment of his glories. All his devotees worship him in that way by chosen words, and therefore the Lord is known as Uttam Shloka. And then later on in the purport, he writes that the word Maya is used both in the sense of delusion and mercy. So delusion as it applies to the non-devotees, and mercy as it applies to the devotees. Okay, we'll do the next verse. So we'll not stop after every verse for Q&A, but I'll take a break after maybe 35-40 minutes, and then another towards the end of the discussion. So we'll do. So if you have any questions, please make a note of it, and we'll do it when we take the break. So 1845. Tambadam ityupamantrya pravishya gajasavayam striyascha swapuram yasyan premna rakya nivaritaha. Thus, accepting the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapur. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthir, who implored him lovingly. So the interesting point here is, in the previous verse, we see that Krishna responds to the prayers by Kunti Devi by smiling at her. And we see that the smile is a manifestation of many things, like acceptance, mercy, gratitude. Now in the prayers, Kunti Devi is saying, asking Krishna to not leave her. But right in the next verse, we see that Krishna is leaving. So the question is that if Krishna accepted the prayers of Kunti Devi, then why is he not acknowledging the prayers? So he's, in one way, is accepting it. In other way, he seems to be rejecting it. How do we understand this? Prem Kishore Prabhu, you might want to change the. Thank you. So how do we reconcile this?
Prabhuji, Krishna accepts her affection, but not that he does everything what his devotees want.
Okay, so the point you're making is that Krishna is supremely independent. So yes, so that is actually one of the points that is made by the acharyas. What else?
Prabhuji, she also mentioned towards the end that in the last few verses she also said that there are people in Dwarka that you need to take care of. So I'm not saying that you something like that on those lines that we were discussing in the last class.
Yeah, thank you. So a little bit more than that. Yes, Kunti Devi says that there are people in Dwarka, but what actually she says is that kindly sever my affection to both the Pandavas as well as the Vrishnis, so that I can only take shelter of you. So that is what Krishna awards Kunti Devi. So earlier on, Kunti Devi was saying that you stay with me. Earlier on in the prayers, she was asking Krishna that you stay with me. Towards the end of the prayer, she was saying that let me stay with you, which is a much higher level of realization, because wherever Krishna goes now, Kunti Devi is there with him, because she is always with him. Krishna actually awards Kunti Devi that benediction, that she will never be alone. Wherever she will be in the association of Krishna. So she now has Krishna's permanent association. So his leaving is not in any way rejecting Kunti Devi's prayers, but actually granting the the essence of what Kunti Devi was praying for. Then what does he do after that? He Swapuram. He enters his own palace in where? In Gajashavyam. So Gajashavyam is another name of Hastinapur. So Hasti is elephant and Gaja is elephant. So the name was given because, so at that time elephants were considered to be a sign of prosperity and wealth, and Hastinapur was a place where there was full of elephants, kind of like saying now there's some place that's full of Mercedes or some expensive car. So Hastinapur was like that. So Gajashavyam. So he goes into Hastinapur and Swapuram. He enters his own palace. Now Krishna does not belong to Hastinapur. There is no palace that belongs to him in Hastinapur. He was living as a guest over there. But yet, Sutta Goswami is using this to show the mood of Krishna, that when he is there in the association of his devotees, he considers their possessions to be just like his own. So we see that also when Krishna went as a messenger, he rejected all the opulences offered by Duryodhan, but happily lived in the palace of Vidur as if it was his own. And at a more conceptual level, Krishna uses everything that belongs to his devotees as his own, because that is the mood of the devotee, that they offer everything that they have to Krishna. To the extent they offer their own happiness, they offer their own intelligence, they offer their own words, everything that they offer to Krishna, and Krishna uses it completely. So what's an example of Krishna using a devotee for his own purpose?
Arjun.
Yes. So he uses Arjun for his own purpose, and we'll see just in the very next chapter, Krishna using yet another devotee for his own purpose. So going into Hastinapur, into his own palace, and then Krishna, he informs the ladies of the departure. Now, why do you think that he informs the ladies of the departure? So the acharyas say that the house is owned by the man, the home is owned by the woman. So the house that is made of brick and mortar and walls and stones is owned by the man. By parishram, by effort, he builds that house. But when the woman comes in there, she makes a home out of it, and a guest comes and takes shelter of the home, not the house. So Krishna was living there as a guest of the as a guest of the home, which is the ladies, which is why when he is leaving, he is also taking their permission and informing them. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that he actually goes to Subhadra, to the ladies headed by Subhadra. So his sister was living as the wife of Arjun there, and he was most affectionate towards his sister. And then he goes to the other ladies to take the permission. Then, as he is getting ready to leave, he is stopped by Yudhishthir. So, how is it possible that Yudhishthir can stop Krishna? So, Krishna is Achyuta. Krishna is one who cannot be convinced, or who is invincible, who cannot be conceived or is invincible. But yet he is taught by King Yudhishthir, and the reason is premanaha, that because of affection. So the point Ravi Prabhu was making about the independence of God, or independence of Krishna, that Krishna is supremely independent. He could stay wherever he wants, he can go wherever he wants, whenever he wants, but yet he is subservient to the love and affection of his devotees. So that's why Suta Goswami says that premagya rajana nivarita, that out of love, Yudhishthir implores him and Krishna stops. So this this loving exchange between Krishna and his devotee is actually the theme of these 5 chapters. The first canto, chapters 7 to 11. We see Krishna's loving exchange with his devotees. Of course, they are also spoken to answer the sages' questions about details of Parikshit Maharaj. But Suta Goswami does it in a way to also bring forth and glorify the loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotees. Okay, next verse, 1846. Vyasadhyarishvaregyaha krishnenadbhutah karmana prabodhito pita shaira nabudyat swacharpitaha. King Yudhishthir, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced, despite instructions by great sages headed by Vyas and the Lord Krishna himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence. So, Yudhishthir, at this point, the battle has ended, and Yudhishthir is beginning to get a sense of the enormity of what has actually happened. Srila Prabhupada in the purport says that 640 million people had died. So he's getting the sense of how much massacre and killing has been done just for him to ascend the throne. So in his bewilderment, he first takes shelter of the Brahmanas and the sages like Srila Vyasadeva and Dhaumya. And the verse indicates that what was the general, it indicates what was the general way in which the Brahmanas guided the kings. So it says they did it by two ways. One is that they quoted the scriptures. So they gave explicit references from the scriptures. And the second is that they illustrated these quotations by examples from the Itihas and the Puranas. So this also shows us how the Shrutis and the Smritis, they coexist and support one another. That in the Vedas are given the specific instructions, especially in the Upanishads. And how these instructions actually play out are illustrated in the Itihas and the Puranas by giving the appropriate references of the pastimes. So this is how the Brahmanas would guide the kings when the kings came to them. So the Varnashram was that the kings took guidance from the Brahmans, and the Brahmans did not whimsically guide them. They would take shelter of the Vedas and the Puranas and the Itihas and thus guide the king. So that is what the sages like Vyas and Dhaumya were doing to address the concerns of Maharaj Yudhishthir. And they failed. They didn't know. They were not able to convince Maharaj Yudhishthir that he had not performed sinful activities. So what to say of the sages and Vyasadeva? Even Krishna failed to convince Yudhishthir. So earlier on, Krishna was able to convince Arjun. Before the battle had happened, Arjun had these doubts, and Krishna was able to convince him, but now he is not able to convince Yudhishthir. Why do you think is that?
Out of his will, like he basically out of his will, as Paramatma sitting in his heart, he decided not to be convinced.
Yes, thank you. So Krishna was unable to convince Yudhishthir because he did not want Yudhishthir to be convinced. It's a little interesting play. So Sutta Goswami, in this verse, he calls Krishna Ishvaraha Gya Krishnena Adbhut Karmana. So one way to understand it is the apparent meaning that Adbhut Karmana, the Krishna, the performer of wondrous activities, was unable to convince Yudhishthir. So that is the meaning in terms of what actually transpired. If you look at a deeper meaning, then what Sutta Goswami is saying, that as Ishvara, Ishvara is, as Paramatma, he made it so that Yudhishthira would not be satisfied. And why is that? Because he is, so he says Ishvara Gyaha, because he is the all-knower. So what is it that he knew? He knew the heart of Bhishma. So as Paramatma, he's also sitting in the heart of Bhishma Dev. So he knows the heart of Bhishma. What are the desires in the heart of Bhishma? So Bhishma had the desire to leave his body in the presence of Krishna. Bhishma had the desire to see that his favorite Pandavas were enthroned. And Bhishma had the desire to make sure that they govern properly. So to satisfy these three desires of Bhishma, Krishna, who's the all-knower, Gya, made it so that despite his own Adbhut Karmana, that despite his own wondrous activities, he was not convinced. Or another way is that these are the wondrous activities of Krishna, Adbhut Karmana. That Krishna is mystical. His activities are Adbhut. They are difficult to comprehend. Wherein he himself is apparently accepting defeat, only to glorify his devotees, only to fulfill the desires of his devotees. Jiva Goswami comments that it is for this reason that the sages and Srila Vyasadeva were also unable to convince Yudhishthira, because Krishna as Paramatma was not able to build that conviction in Yudhishthira, and also as Paramatma in their heart, he gave them the understanding that let Bhishma be the one who be glorified in convincing Yudhishthira. So Bhishma is remembered as having accomplished something that Krishna failed to do. Krishna failed to convince Yudhishthira, and Bhishma was able to do that. So that is Adbhut Karmana. That is the wondrous activities of the Lord. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Krishna need not have stayed in Hastinapur. He could have gone away and asked Yudhishthira to take instructions from Bhishma. But he stayed there because he also wanted to fulfill Bhishma's desire of leaving his body in the presence of Krishna. So he said that is Adbhut Karmana. That is he's fulfilling so many things simultaneously. That is the wondrous activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so we'll do the next verse, 1847. Aharaja dharmashutas chintayan surdam vadam prakritena atmana vipraha snehamoha vasamgataha. King Yudhishthira, son of Dharma, overwhelmed by the death of his friends, was aggrieved just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak. So 5 verses beginning from 47 are Yudhishthira giving 5 reasons why he should be condemned, why his actions are worthy of being condemned. Now, at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjun also gives reasons not to fight. So how many reasons did Arjun give?
6.
5 reasons. He gave 5 reasons. And what are the 5 reasons? So you've done that as part of the Bhakti Shastri?
Family traditions are last.
Yeah.
Sinful reactions.
Sinful reactions. 2. 3 more to go.
Only truth left.
His affection for his kinsmen, that he wanted to go for begging instead of doing
Compassion. 3.
Indecision.
Indecisiveness. 4. And then-
Varna Sankara, did that get covered?
Yeah, family tradition, right? I think you were the one who said family tradition. And the 4th is enjoyment. The Arjun says that, who will I enjoy with if everybody that I can enjoy with has already been killed? So in these 5 verses, Yudhishthira will also give the same 5 reasons. The only difference is the perspective. Arjun is giving it in the sense that this is what will happen. Yudhishthira is giving them as this is what has happened. So future tense, past tense, but he gives the same 5 reasons in a different order. And Bhishma Dev in his response, so in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna in his response addresses these 5 reasons. And Bhishma Deva in his response will address these 5 reasons. So let's begin with the first verse, the one that we said that overwhelmed by the death of his friends was aggrieved just like a common materialistic man, and deluded by affection, he began to speak. So this corresponds to compassion. That because of his intense affection for his family man, he is deluded. And so I won't go into the details. You know so this is verses 28 to 30 where Arjun expresses his compassion. So Suta Goswami, he describes Arjun as the son of Dharmaraj. In fact, he was an incarnation of Dharmaraj. Yet he is behaving like a common materialistic person. So why is he behaving like a common materialistic person? Because he is displaying the symptoms of the material conception of self, lamentation, undue affection to friends. So these are symptoms of common materialistic person, and that's why Suta Goswami is saying that he's behaving like even though he's the son of religion personified, he's behaving like such a person. Not only that, if you look at the verse, Yudhishthira says that Chintayan Suhurdam Vadam. So Suhurdam literally means well-wishers. So when he thinks about Suhurdam Vadam, the killing of his well-wishers, so he is even more Kripana than Arjun. So Arjun was showing compassion to the Kauravas. He was saying that why should I kill them even though they may want to kill me? After all, they are my fathers and brothers and brother-in-laws, etc. And even if they want to kill me, why should I kill them? But Yudhishthira is Chintayam Suhurdam. He is lamenting because of the death of his well-wishers. He is saying that, okay, those people have died, they deserved it, let them die. But so many of my friends have died. So many of my well-wishers have died. And this is because of his bewilderment. Okay, next verse, 1848. Ahomi pashyat agyanam hridi rudham duratmanaha parakrasya eva dehasya bhavyame akshunir hataha. King Yudhishthira said, "Oh my Lord, I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. This body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many, many phalanxes of men. So even though the battle was justified by moral and religious principles, so Yudhishthira is holding himself accountable to the higher moral principles of dharma. So according to the principles of morality that are given in the Manu Samhita, you should kill your enemy to protect yourself, protect your women, protect your land, etc. But according to the principles of Dharma Shastra, forgiveness is recommended. So Yudhishthira, he's saying that I should have held myself to the higher principles of dharma. Therefore, I am the most sinful man. And he says that just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. So that's an interesting phrase, because the heart is not the seat of knowledge. The heart is generally where compassion, love, forgiveness lives. Knowledge and ignorance is symptom of the intelligence or the mind. But Yudhishthira, he's saying, oh me pashyat agyanam hridi. Pashyat is just see. Agyanam hridi, my heart filled with ignorance. So he's referring to referring to the ignorance of false ego over here. He's referring to the fact that his heart, which should have compassion in it, is ignorant of that compassion. Which should have love and forgiveness in it, is ignorant of that love and forgiveness. And then he says this body is meant for others. So this is the mood of a devotee, that by your words, by your thoughts, by your actions and body, you serve the Lord and his devotees. So here he is displaying that mood. And we see when we see Arjun and Prabhupada's purport on Arjun's reasons not to fight, then we see the Prabhupada saying that he's acting materialistically, he's acting from the platform of an advanced devotee. We see the similar vacillations in Yudhishthira, that in the previous verse he's acting as a Kripana, talking about my friends and what will I do without my friends. And now he's talking from a more liberated platform. So Prabhupada says that real sanity is to understand that the body belongs to Krishna, Parakrasheva. And then he says everything belongs to somebody else. But if you go to the chain, this belongs to this, belongs to this, ultimately that chain stops at Krishna. So Yudhishthira is not seeing that. He's not seeing that his body belongs to Krishna, but he's thinking that his body belongs to others, including himself, which is why he is deluded. So he says that I am the most sinful man. So this corresponds to Arjun's reason of fear of sinful reactions, which he talks about in verse 43 to 45 of the first chapter. Okay, we'll do the next verse. 1849. Baladvija Suran Mitra Pitra Pratar Guru Druha Rameshyan Nirayan Moksha Ayapi Varsha Yuta Yutaha. I have killed many boys, brahmanas, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors and brothers. Though I live millions of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me of all this sins. So what does this verse remind you of? So you can't forget the Bhagavad Gita and study the Bhagavatam, right? So this is Arjun when he says, O Madhusudan, teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, father-in-law, grandsons, They are ready to fight. Why should I kill them even though they may be ready to kill me? So Arjuna is seeing all the grades of his relatives in the two sides of the battlefield, and Yudhishthir is seeing the same thing. The only thing is that Arjuna is seeing them as people that he will have to kill. Yudhishthira is seeing them as already having killed them. Dronacharya has already been killed. So many of his friends and relatives, Duryodhana has already been killed. Karna has already been killed. So he is lamenting for the loss of his friends and family. And he makes this point, though I live millions of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me from these sins. So herein he is making this point, which gives us the key as to why was Yudhishthira not convinced by Vyasa and the sages and Krishna, because the way to counteract sin is atonement. And atonement is something that Yudhishthira is rejecting. So he says, I live millions of years. Now he knows he's not going to live millions of years, but the point that he's making is that in millions of births, when I live for millions of years and I practice atonement in each of these births, that will not be sufficient for me to counteract the sins that he has committed. So what he is looking for is something more potent than atonement, which has not been delivered to him so far. Okay. We'll go till the end of the chapter and then I'll stop for questions. So 1850. Naina rajna prajabhartu dharma yuddha vadadvisham iti mena tu bodhaya kalpate sashanam vachaha. There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But this injunction is not applicable to me. So by the way, the previous verse corresponds to Arjun's reason for enjoyment. So the point that he made is, who will I enjoy when all my relatives are killed? Yudhishthira is making that point in retrospect. That all of them are dead. So there is no potential for me to enjoy. In this verse, there is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens, but this injunction is not applicable to me. So this reflects Arjun's reason of indecisiveness, where Arjun says, nor do I know what is better, for me to fight or for me to not fight. So Yudhishthira says that even though I know that there is no sin when somebody kills for the right cause, which means that he's acknowledging that the battle was fought for the right cause, but then he says, I feel this injunction is not applicable for me. So he has this indecisiveness. So one of the reasons is that the right cause is something that is difficult to ascertain in an objective way, because Duryodhana was also a very efficient king. So for the time that he ruled, basically he was ruling the entire earth planet from Hastinapur, the kingdom was actually flourishing. It is said in the Mahabharata that there was abundant grain for the citizens. And by the strength of his arm, all the criminal elements were subdued. So Duryodhana was very efficient. In fact, he was so efficient that when Yudhishthira did the Rajasuya Yagya, he actually asked Duryodhana to be the organizer for it. It was a big event. Big, great personalities were coming, wanted to make sure that everything happens perfectly well. And then he said, who is the best person to organize it? And everybody said Duryodhana. So Duryodhana was actually given that responsibility. Karna was given the responsibility for charity. So he was the one who was giving in charity. So Yudhishthira is thinking in this way that the kingdom was being run very efficiently by Duryodhana. So what was the need for me to have this massacre and kill this millions of people? Prabhupada, of course, explains that even though Duryodhana was materially efficient, he was spiritually defunct. He did not have the proper spiritual conception, given by the fact that even when Krishna was present personally in front of him, he did not accept him as the personality of Godhead. And the purpose of the king is really to help the citizens make spiritual advancement. So when the king himself is spiritually defunct, how can he help the praja make any spiritual advancements? So even though he was giving some extent of material prosperity, but he was not fulfilling the right. The kings at the time were called Raj Rishis. That they were rishis who had taken the position of king, who were actually spiritual guides. And that is what Duryodhana was lacking. So that is why it was justified. But Yudhishthira at this point, in the mood of a devotee, he is considering himself to be spiritually at a very low platform, and is considering Duryodhana to be materially very advanced. So from both ways, he is considering that he is made a mistake. Duryodhana is materially more advanced. I am spiritually very at a very low platform. So why did I unnecessarily cause this killing? So this is the mood of a devotee, that of humility. And but Prabhupada says that religious fight means you have got the right to kill your aggressor, dharma yudh. It is not that somebody has become an aggressor. And if one says, now I've become a Vaishnava, I will not be violent, I shall tolerate. That is not the proper mood. So Prabhupada, this is, even though it's a transient mood of Yudhishthira, Srila Prabhupada is condemning that mood. That one should not, in the name of humility, start accepting what is incorrect or start accepting injustice. Real humility is to act only when it is in the service of others, in whatever way the service can be done. Okay, we'll do the next verse. Strinam maddata bandhunam droya savyohitaha karma me grame deye nam kalpa vayopihitam. I have killed many friends of women, and I have caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material work. So, killing a soldier in a battlefield is one thing, but when it starts causing harm to those who are the most unprotected, and in this case, Yudhishthira talks about Strinam. Earlier on, he talks about Baladvija, about children and Brahmans. So the purpose of a king is to protect the women, is to protect children, and to protect the Brahmins. So he's saying that my sins are even more severe because they have resulted in me making millions of women vulnerable. Why? because in the battle, their father, their brother, their husband, their sons have been killed. And he says this is a sin that is difficult to counteract. And then he said, how will this sin manifest? He said the sin will manifest in terms of enmity towards me. So it is said that because of one's pious activities, one gets friends, and because of one's sinful activities, one gets enemies. So he's saying, because I have committed all this sin, I will be plagued by enmity in this life and in subsequent lives. So this is the same mood that Kunti Devi had also expressed. When she told Krishna not to leave, she said, even though we have won the battle, but as a result of the slaying in the battles, we have developed much enmity towards us. And in the purport, it was explained that enmity is because of the relatives of those who have been killed. So then he says that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work. So same point that Yudhishthira made in the previous verse, that atonement is not going to be enough. Now he is explicitly stating it, that material welfare work will not be sufficient to counteract it. And the reason Yudhishthira is saying it, because one can assume that when he was counseled by Krishna and Srila Vyasadeva and Dhaumya, they talked to him about atonement. That even if you think you have committed sinful activities, these are the processes of atonement that are there. So, and factually speaking, Yudhishthira does go through the process of atonement. He does by performing 3 Rajasuya Yagyas. So Krishna tells him that the performance of the Rajasuya Yagya is the sure way of atoning the killing of Brahmanas. Even the killing of Brahmanas can be atoned by the performance of Ashwamedha Yagya. So it is not that Yudhishthira is negating the Vedas. It's not that he's saying that the Vedas, in the Vedas there is this process of atonement that is given, but they won't work for me. But the reason that he is rejecting it is because he feels that this process of atonement in itself is not potent enough to address the gravity of the sins. So this is a very similar mode to what is displayed by Parikshit Maharaj in the 6th canto, 1st chapter, when he asks Sukadeva Goswami that how does one get relief from one's sinful activities? And Sukadeva Goswami says, simple, to the process of atonement. And Parikshit Maharaj says that I don't think so. In the 6th canto, 1st chapter, he talks about the example of elephant bathing. Right? He compares atonement to elephant bathing. That the elephant takes a bath, comes back and throws mud on itself. So atonement is you atone for the sin, but your propensity to perform sinful activity remains. So you perform more sinful activities. So he is not rejecting the process, but he is rejecting the efficacy of the process in the context of the crimes that he has committed. So essentially he is looking for something that is more potent. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually gives us a glimpse into the remedy. So Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita 9:27-28, the remedy is suggested that such actions and reactions of the path of work can be checked only when the work is done on behalf of the Supreme Lord. The battle of Kurukshetra was actually fought by the will of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, as is evident from his version. And only by his will was Yudhishthira placed on the throne of Hastinapur. Therefore, factually, no sin whatsoever touched the Pandavas, who were only the order carriers of the Lord. For others who declare war out of personal interest, the whole responsibility lies on them. So Srila Prabhupada quotes 9:27-28. This is the famous Yad Karoshi, Yad Ashnasi, Yad Juhoshi, Dadashi, Yad. That whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, any austerities that you perform, do it as an offering to me. So, in these 5 verses, Yudhishthira gives the 5 reasons why he's dejected. So I'll quickly go over them. That in the verse 47, he talked about compassion. In verse 48, we talked about fear of sinful reactions. In verse 49, we talked about enjoyment. Verse 50, indecision. And verse 51, destruction of family. Okay, so we'll do the next verse, which is the last verse in the chapter, 1852. Yatha pankena pankamabaha surya vasurakratam bhutavatyam tathevekam nayagyerma sutam marati. As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud or purify a wine-stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. So Yudhishthira here is expanding on why he thinks that atonement will not work. So even though it's not explicitly said here, but based on this we can understand that Yudhishthira was asked to perform yagyas in a way of atonement. And the process of performing yagyas is sacrifice of animal. So he's saying that this kind of atonement is not the ideal process. So as the Prabhupada quotes the Shruti, and he says that in the Shruti it is said, Sarvam Papanam Tarati Brahmatyam yo Ashvamadhena Yajate. He who performs a horse sacrifice is purified of all sins, even the sin of killing a Brahman. But Yudhishthira says that this is not going to work for him. And then he gives an analogy which can help us understand why he's saying that. He's saying that it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud. Why? Because the mud will stay in the water. And similarly, it is not possible to clean a wine stain with wine because the wine will stay on the vessel. But the important thing to understand here is the reason Yudhishthira is using these 2 analogies is because these are the prescribed ways of performing those activities. So we don't see that in the US, but in India, how are dirty utensils cleaned? They're cleaned by mud. And the mud actually does a very good job cleaning it, because it's the whole because mud attracts mud, so it takes away the mud that is on the vessel. Similarly, if there is a vessel that is stained with wine, then that I don't have experience with, because I don't think people now have wine to waste that they use it to clean. But apparently, if you use alcohol to clean alcohol, it dissolves the alcohol. So they are both prescribed ways, but they are not perfect, because if you use mud to filter out the water, then there will still be mud. The only difference is now the mud that stays with the water is the mud that you use to clean, and the wine that stays on the vessel is the wine that you use to clean. So the problem with this kind of atonement is that while the atonement might neutralize the activity of the sinful reactions, but that atonement itself will result in contamination. So when you're performing yagyas and you kill animals in that, then you are still left with the contamination, the sin of killing killing the animal. Similarly, when performing atonement, atonement itself is an activity. It itself is karma. And every karma has a reaction. So it leaves its residue behind. So that is the reason why Parishit Maharaj rejects, and why Maharaj Yudhishthir is also rejecting this process. So Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he wants to make this point that Yudhishthir is not rejecting the Vedas. He's just questioning the efficacy of them in this particular situation. So Prabhupada does not want to read this and say that, or for us to read this and say that Yudhishthir is rejecting Ashwamedha Yagya, that is prescribed atonement in the Vedas, which means that it is okay to reject the Vedas because Maharaj Yudhishthir rejected it. So in the purport he says, Ashwamedha Yagya or Gomedha Yagya, sacrifices in which a horse or a bull is sacrificed, were not, of course, for the purpose of killing the animals. Lord Chaitanya said that such animals sacrificed on the altar of Yagya were rejuvenated and a new life was given to them. It was just to prove the efficacy of the hymns of the Vedas. By recitation of the hymns of the Vedas in the proper way, certainly the performer gets relief from the reactions of sins. So Prabhupada is saying these are bona fide methods, but Prabhupada gives another reason that why Yudhishthir is rejecting them is because with his eye on the coming age of Kali, Yudhishthir Maharaj knows that there will be no one there to properly perform this yagyas. And in fact, that's what happened and is happening. Now we don't see that happening, but earlier on, the Brahmanas used to sacrifice animals for the purpose of eating their flesh. And that was the prominent way in which flesh eating came about. That even though they were not qualified to perform the yagyas, they would perform the yagyas, they would sacrifice a lamb or a goat or other animal, and then they would eat it as prasad. So that's how meat eating was introduced amongst the Hindus. So Prabhupada said that Maharaj, this rejection of Maharaj Yudhishthir is relevant to the age of Kali, because in the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there is no possibility of performing the yagyas perfectly for want of expert brahmanas who are able to conduct such yagyas. Maharaj Yudhishthir therefore gives a hint to performing sacrifices in the age of Kali. In the Kali Yuga, the only sacrifice recommended is the performance of Harinam Yagya, inaugurated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one should never indulge in animal killing and counteract it by performing Harinam Yagya. So Prabhupada is saying, let's not go down that path. That we say that Harinam Yagya is powerful, so let me kill a few animals and counteract that by Harinam Yagyas. Those who are devotees of the Lord never kill an animal for self-interest, and as the Lord ordered Arjun, they do not refrain from performing the duty of a Kshatriya. The whole purpose, therefore, is to serve when everything is done for the will of the Lord. That is only possible for the devotees. So this is the end of the 8th chapter. I'll stop here for questions, comments.
Prabhuji, one question. In verse 44, so Kunti Maharani is like, we saw that Kunti Maharani was praying, and then, Lord Krishna, like Krishna smiled, acknowledging, her prayers and everything. But, like you mentioned that, he basically acknowledged the second half of his prayers, of her prayers, so basically, can we understand that, like, the second half of her prayers was in her matured stage?
Yes.
Just like Vyasadev's
yes.
writing of Bhagavatam.
Yes, that was the answer that was coming in my mind when you were asking the question, that the latter half, it represents a flow in the increase of maturity of Kunti Devi. So first she says, protect my relatives in Hastinapur. Then she talks about the Vrishnis. Then she says neither. And she says, just allow me to serve you. And that's what Krishna grants.
Sorry. So when we see, so what is a matured stage? I mean, like, is pure devotional stage is the matured? It seems like pure devotion is the matured stage, and what we are practicing is definitely not matured. But when we are praying, sometimes we see that it is answered, or sometimes we see that it's not answered. So how do we understand, like, when it is answered, like, how is that? Is that
It's a good question, practical question, and there are a few ways for us to understand. When we pray to Krishna, then Prabhupada famously said this, that Krishna may not give you everything you want, but he will give you everything you need. So as you mentioned, that sometimes our prayers are coming from a platform of Mishra Bhakti, which means that they are not completely conducive to devotion. And Krishna may distill the part. Like we may pray to Krishna. I know there was a devotee friend of mine who used to buy lottery tickets, and he would pray to Krishna that please help me win this lottery ticket. I'll give the money to the temple. And once he asked to a sannyasi who later on became his Guru Maharaj, that is there something wrong in this prayer? And sannyasi was Mukund Maharaj. And Mukund Maharaj laughed and he said that if Krishna wants $1 million, then he can make many arrangements. He doesn't have to have you win a lottery. And in fact, there is greater danger in you winning the lottery, because you may not give the $1 million to the temple. So there's greater danger over there. And then he asked him to stop buying lottery tickets after that. So that's what Krishna does. That he will give us what is necessary for us to make spiritual advancements, and he will also give us the reactions to our karma, so that the karma can be expunged, and the reactions can be used to purify us.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I had one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I wrote it somewhere, Prabhuji. Let me get back to you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hari Bol, Prem Kishore Prabhu.
Yeah. In the verse 850, Yudhishthira in the mode of a devotee, who was basically comparing, I don't know who he was comparing to Duryodhana, or it was our discussion. But the question here is on the definition of humility, or if we can expand on the boundaries. So we discussed about humility is like right to kill the aggressor quality, right? And we should not accept any injustice in humility. So what is our takeaway in that, like for a devotee? What should be where we should not accept injustice?
So Srila Prabhupada mentions in this respect that one of the manifestations of humility is the proper mood. In this context, he says the proper mood to determine when to act and when not to act. But the key point is the proper mood. Everything else that follows is predicated on this phrase, and the proper mood is that will this please Krishna? So based on that mood, whether we act or whether we don't act, that is secondary. But that mood is the exemplification of humility. That every action that we perform, when we develop this sense that will this please Krishna, and Krishna of course is never in isolation. So when we say will this please Krishna, then what it means is will this please Guru Maharaj, will this please the devotees, and then act upon it. Jayadvaita Maharaj was giving the example of I forget the name of there was a disciple of Prabhupada, and he developed this habit that before he did anything, he asked himself that will this please Prabhupada, and if the answer was yes, then only he would do it. And it became so much an intrinsic part of him that even for seemingly mundane things, that he would get up in the morning and he would get off the bed and he would say, will this please Prabhupada? And then he would get off the bed. And every activity that he would do, taking a bath, offering obeisances, so it just became very, very intrinsic to his nature. So not to say that that we can aspire for that, but just developing that mood that will these activities, and in some cases the activities may be ugra karma. We witnessed a lot of ugra karma during the earlier days of ISKCON, still witness it, where people worked very hard, tirelessly, 18 hours a day, cold weather, and the answer to the question, will this please Prabhupada, was yes. That's why they performed it. Or devotees who basically, like once I visited Gopi Purandan Prabhu. I visited in the sense that Rampad Maharaj visited. I was traveling with him, and he lived near Govardhan. He passed away now. He lived in Govardhan, and he had a small kutir, very, very peaceful life, a very small kutir, and away from the hustle and the bustle, and it was really pastoral. At the time we went, the birds were chirping, and there was grass all around. He was peacefully sitting in there reading his books. We know that's how he served Prabhupada, by translating so many books. So the mood is the same, and the mood properly implemented will result in a conception of humility.
Thank you, Prabhu. Perfect answer.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, Yudhishthira Maharaj is saying that this body is actually meant for others. One thing I can understand is because all the elements are given by Krishna, all the 5 elements. So Krishna, it is easy for me to understand. But for others, other than parents, I couldn't relate anyone this body belongs to. If so, then does it promote meat eating also? Because sometimes I heard from Christians that all the animals are meant for our eating. So can you explain in these 2 lines?
So the first part is, I guess, is relatively straightforward. And Prabhupada mentioned in the purport also that when living, the body is meant for others, means that it is meant for the service of others. So elsewhere it is said that we are born with so many debts. And so how do you repay your debts? You repay your debts with your body. You're indebted to your parents, you're indebted to the king, you're indebted to the nurse, you're indebted to the guru, you're indebted to Mother Earth. So there are so many debts that you're born with. And that's what you use your body. You use your body to pay off the debts. And after you die, then the body is meant for the insects and the worms and for fire. And that's how you serve the material elements. That in order to make your body, you stole these 5 material elements, and then you give it back. So so that is an understanding of the body belonging to others. So I think the second part that you're saying that, so there's one conception is saying that my body belongs to others. The second point is saying that your body belongs to mine, right? So it's a little bit of it's inverse logic, and I guess it's not a logical extrapolation kind of a thing. Because when I can go to somebody else and say your body belongs to me, so let me eat you, whether it is a human person, whether it is a human or a man, or saying that your body belongs to me, so that everything that is linked to your body, your wealth, your house belongs to me. So let me take that. So unless you have because even when the scriptures say the body belongs to others, it's predicated on a certain debt, right? So the guru can come and say that yes, your opulences belong to me, right? We have instances where the guru took away everything from the disciple, right? We see when Parashar Muni, he conquered the entire earth, and then when he did the yagya, then Kashyap Muni, he took the entire earth from him, saying that now everything that you have belongs to me. So he took everything from Parashar Muni, and Parashar Muni says, you have taken the whole earth planet, where should I live now? And Kashyap Muni says, I'm sorry, I have no idea. You gave me the earth, now it belongs to me, you find some other place for you to go. So that's where he constructed, or according to some versions of the Puranas, what was the place he constructed, Gaurasundar Prabhu?
I don't know, Prabhu. Sorry.
He constructed Kerala. So he threw
Oh,
his...
you meant Parashuram, not Parashar Muni.
Oh, I was just saying Parashar Muni, sorry. I meant Parashuram.
Oh, okay, Prabhu.
So he threw his paras, he threw his axe into the ocean, and there the super fertile land was created. Because it was created after he had done the yagya, he had not given it away. So Parashar Muni is supposedly in Kerala. Though I don't believe that I think there is one temple of Parashar Muni no, not Parashar, I'm again saying Parashar Muni.
Yes, Prabhu, it's near my place.
There's one temple of Parshuram, right?
Parashuram. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
That's the only temple of Parashuram in the whole planet.
Yes. So, but there was some. He was the guru. Kashyap Muni was a guru, so he could demand it. But unless you have some factual basis for the relationship, you can't enforce that, and especially on the animals, right? You can't enforce it to the animals and say that your body belongs to me. They never offered the body to you. How can you say that your body belongs to me? Okay, so if there are no more questions, I can go to the 9th chapter. Achyuta, did you remember the question you were going to ask?
Yeah, Prabhuji. So Prabhuji, I'm just wondering, so Kunti Maharani's prayers and just like the Vyasdevji, we recite Bhagavatam because he wrote it in his maturity, and it's kind of like the essence of all the Vedic literatures. So Kunti Maharani's prayers, should we? I mean, I know that we should read the entire set of prayers, not segregate, the first part as not being at the maturity level, the advanced level, and the second part being so how, I mean, should we skip those verses which are basically talking about asking for bodily comforts and asking for Lord Krishna to stay? And
Sure. It's a good question. I think the prayers are like, the verses are like very an intricately woven fabric. When we were doing the prayers, we saw how the verses were leading into one another. They were both in terms of realization and building that from Sambandh to Abhiday to Prayojan. And people of the stature of Kunti Devi, they never say something, even though they apparently are saying it because they're demonstrating the stages. It does not reflect upon their immaturity. They are just talking so that they can guide us through it. So typically, when people recite prayers of Kunti Devi, they recite it in its entirety. But Prabhupada also said that in the Bhagavatam, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the prayers, any verse that inspires you is good enough. Even one verse, he said, even one phrase that inspires you is good enough. Many people recite Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha. So this is one of the initial realizations of Kunti Devi that come in the category of Sambandha. Whereas in the later part of the prayer, she's talking about Prayojan, which is much at a much higher level. But if you are just reciting that verse, it inspires us. So I think whatever inspires you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay. So so the next chapter is the ninth chapter, titled "The Passing Away of Bhishma Dev in the Presence of Lord Krishna." And this chapter essentially has the prayers of Bhishma Dev and the instructions of Bhishma Dev. So as we saw earlier on, that Yudhishthira is not pacified by the explanations by Krishna or Vyas or by the other sages, so he goes to Bhishma Dev. And the conversation is recorded in this chapter. And because this is Bhagavatam, we see that Sukadeva Goswami, or in this case Suta Goswami, he kind of skims over the instructions. He gives the instructions very, very briefly. In the Mahabharata, the instructions of Bhishma Dev come under the Shanti Parva of the Mahabharata, which is the largest of the 12 books of Mahabharata. There are 365 chapters, because Bhishma Dev gives really elaborate instructions, and every instruction that he gives, he illustrates it with pastimes to demonstrate the final points of the instructions. But Suta Goswami, he only, I think there are only 4 verses which are essentially these instructions. The rest of the chapter is actually the prayers by Bhishma Dev. So Bhishma Dev starts with praying to Krishna. He gives a few instructions, and then he ends it again with prayers to Krishna. So that's the general flow of this chapter. So let's do the first verse, 191. Suta vacha iti bita prajadrohat sarvadharma vivitsaya tata vinashanam pragad yatra deva vrattapatat. Suta Goswami said, being afraid of having killed so many subjects, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Maharaj Yudhishthira went to the scene of the massacre. There Bhishma Dev was lying on a bed of arrows, about to pass away. So even though this point is not explicitly made, but from the ending of the 8th chapter and the beginning of the 9th chapter, we can understand that either Krishna or the sages, they ask Yudhishthira to take instructions from Bhishma Dev. So we don't see that statement being made anywhere, but just by the activity, that Yudhishthira was inconsolable, nobody could address his concerns, and the next thing you know is that he's heading to where Bhishma Dev was. So one can understand that Yudhishthira received these instructions, most probably from Krishna, to go and place his doubts in front of Bhishma Dev. So in the purport to this verse, which I would strongly recommend that you read, Srila Prabhupada gives a purport, gives us commentary, summary of the whole chapter. That is going to come, and it helps to have the summary, because we know how it plays out. I'll read a lecture given by Srila Prabhupada, in which he again, so the purport you can read. I'll read out a lecture, excerpt from a lecture. where Prabhupada says, Bitaha prajaha drohat. So the most important point is that King Yudhishthira was so responsible, he became afraid that I have killed so many praja. So Maharaj Yudhishthira is not only thinking of the human beings who were killed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he is also thinking of all the horses, elephants, because they are also living entities. They are also praja. Now what did he do? Sarvadharma vivitsaya. That is the position to approach a guru. When you're bewildered, when things are not in order, brain is puzzled, tato vinashanam pragat. Then he decided, let me go to Bhishma Dev. He can give me the instruction. What is that instruction? Sarvadharma. Instruction on all kinds of different varieties of religious systems. So we can see the parallel over here, that in the Gita, Arjun was bewildered and he turned to Krishna for instructions. Here Yudhishthira is bewildered and he turns to Bhishma Dev for instructions. And because the instructions of Bhishma Dev are super condensed, we can get some kind of parallel between the instructions of Bhishma Dev and the instructions of Krishna. So they go in the similar flow, but difficult for us to establish that because, like I said, that literally speaking, thousands of verses from Mahabharata have been condensed into 4 verses here. So the instructions are heavily condensed. So this conversation is also very illustrative because it's happening between 2 great personalities. So Bhishma Dev is one of the 12 Mahajans and Dharmaraj is also one of the 12 Mahajans. So this is happening between 2 great personalities, and Bhishma, in order to fulfill the desires of Krishna, is taking the position of being the instructing instructing guru. Some slight trivia over here, that in the Mahabharata, in these instructions also, Bhishma Dev, he gives Maharaj Yudhishthira a very important set of prayers. Does anybody know which prayers is given to Maharaj Yudhishthira?
Vishnu Sahasranam.
Vishnu Sahasranam. So he gives Vishnu Sahasranam to Maharaj Yudhishthira. And Bhishma himself, he's appearing for the first time in the Bhagavatam. So he's an exalted personality, and we could speak for a long time on his on who he was and where he came from. But it is available in the Bhagavatam. So I recommend that you read it. The first 10 verses of the chapter 9, they are sort of setting the scene. They are so Bhishma does not speak. The first 10 verses are really setting of the scene where Bhishma speaks, but he does not start giving instructions. And then the instructions flow. So since we are almost out of time, I'll stop over here. We'll start from 192 next week. And if there are any questions, comments, we can take them.
You even further answered, Prabhuji, the question that I was asking, that even how Yudhishthira Maharaj is seeing animals also as praja.
Right. Prabhupada says that's the mood of a real king, that everybody is the praja, needs to be protected. Okay, so we will continue with our discussions on Bhishma Dev's prayers next Wednesday. Vancha kalpatarubhayaschit kripa sindhu vaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्ण।